pulling it together. I spoke with President Erdogan, who I'm very friendly with him. He feels he's got a shot at doing a good job.
Before traveling here to Doha.
Well, before their meeting, President Trump announced plans to lift punishing US sanctions on Syria. He says Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who attended in person, and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who you just heard mentioned, and who joined that meeting on the phone, both played an instrumental role in his decision. Look, we can't underscore how important this trip is. President Trump announcing the lifting of all sanctions on Syria following that historic meeting in Riyadh with the interim president. Joining me now to unpack what this means for Syria and the region is senior fellow at the Middle East Institute, Ibrahim Al-Asil. The interim president, once branded a terrorist, now stands alongside President Trump in Riyadh. This, you could argue, legitimizes a person who once fought US troops. That's one argument. Or the other argument, I guess conversely, is this is a pragmatic step towards stabilizing Syria. How do you view this?
It's a huge step for stabilizing Syria, and it's something that Syrians have been asking for a long time. And I want to highlight that while, of course, the Saudi role was huge, and many Syrians appreciate that, and same for the Turkish role, but also many Syrians have been working on that, from the students to academics to activists to business leaders and journalists writing and talking about this and pushing more and more towards lifting sanctions. Why? Because it allows Syrians to breathe again. Usually when we think about sanctions, we think of them as on the macro level, as something huge on a country. But we forget that they affect the lives of the individuals on the tiny details, from medicine to connectivity and being able to check their email normally and download an update for an app, also to what industries they can have, where they can travel, what kind of machines they can buy for their factories. All of that, Syrians were facing immense challenges, and now the road seems to be with less challenge. It's still challenging, but one and the major obstacle seems to be moved out from the way for Syrians to move ahead and rebuild their country and improve the dynamics, including the political dynamics inside Syria.
Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia reportedly urging President Trump to engage with al-Sarraj. Saudi Arabia has gone from opposing Assad's regime to championing Syria's reintegration into the Arab fold. Why? And what does this pivot reveal about Riyadh's evolving strategy in this region?
It's because of the location of Syria and the potential of Syria in the region and in the regional aspiration of the Saudis and the economic prosperity that Syria could contribute to this. Syria is at a very sensitive spot on the map. Stabilizing Syria could help stabilizing the Middle East. And not only that, allowing Syrians to rebuild their economy would certainly contribute to the prosperity of the Middle East. I think any improvement in the Syrian economy will be felt directly in Lebanon, will be felt directly in Jordan, and that would also open the doors for the Syrian refugees to go back to their countries. Similar for Turkey. Also, Syria connects Turkey and Europe to Arabia and the rest of the Middle East. Many major economic projects inside the Middle East require stability in Syria. And all of that would certainly be reflected on the rest of the region and would allow to shift the mentality and the reality of the region from conflicts, from wars, from violence, into more of economic-oriented, business-oriented development and prosperity mentality in Syria and in the region.
Ibrahim, the streets of Damascus celebrating, as are other cities across the country, after 50 years of economic isolation and more than a decade of war. The hope is that the shattered institutions of Syria can be revived. I wonder how you see the idea of Syria normalizing relations with Israel and gifting President Trump an Abraham Accord. Is that a leap of faith at this point? If so, how much of a leap of faith? Certainly a directive from President Trump, an ask.
Becky, the majority of Syrians, they want to have peace at home and they want to have peace in the neighborhood. They do want to have peace with their neighbors. The issue with Israel is indeed complicated, but it's not impossible to resolve. The issue of the Golan Heights, the issue of the borders, the concerns of both sides are deep and real and serious. However, that means there is a potential for these talks, and there is a potential for having better relationships on both sides, the Israeli side and the Syrian side. And that requires both sides to start a long journey of negotiations between both of them, and to have and to believe that a better relationship is possible between both of them. Yesterday, we've seen Syrians celebrating in the streets, hoping really that their children will have a better life than the ones they had over the last few decades. And they will be able to have peace with their neighbors. They will be able to have peace in their country, and they will be able to focus more about how to rebuild this country rather than going from one conflict to another and from one cycle of violence to another.
What does this say about US foreign policy, and how might this affect Washington's relationships with its more traditional allies? And I am thinking very specifically about Israel. It does feel as if we are turning a page with Donald Trump in US policy on the Middle East.
I think the nature or the way of striking deals is clearly different between President Trump and the presidents before him. He's clearly not hesitant to take big steps and big leaps in relationships, like meeting with Ahmed al-Sharaa, like announcing that he's going to lift all sanctions on Syria. But I also would like to highlight that Syria, before the Ba'ath regime and the Assad dynasty, was a Western-oriented nation when it comes to the political institutions, to the economic policy, to education, and to the foreign alignment. And I think opening the door for Syria to go back and become more integrated in the region and have friendlier relationships with the West is a huge opportunity. And I'm glad President Trump recognized that and built on that. I'm still watching the rest of the trip to see what kind of deals President Trump is going to strike and what kind of understandings he is building in the region. But there is a huge momentum in the region. There is a huge shift and a huge opportunity. And the United States, no matter who the president is, no matter what party and political party is in the White House or in the Congress, the United States should recognize this opportunity, because it builds for a better relation between the United States and the whole Middle East as a region after a decade of troubling relationship.